worshipful work of you, O God. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Jerry. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this first stewardship event of 2024, our first webinar. My name's Dave Durham. I'm stewardship chair at Darnestown Presbyterian Church and on the National Capital Presbytery Stewardship Committee. We're happy to make this presentation on planned giving with Carl Madison. Carl's our chair of the committee, and I've known Carl for a number of years. He's been a big influence us in helping our stewardship program, both in annual giving, but also in this very important area of planned giving, endowments, and endowing your pledges. So, Carl, I have the pleasure of introducing you and letting you take over and run with this. We'll also take questions if you want to put them in the Q&A box. We can get those to Carl at the end here. So, with further ado, Carl, turn it over to you.
Fabulous. Thank you, Dave. Really appreciate it. Great to be with everyone here today, talk about my favorite topic, planned giving. I realize that it, for other people, is not their favorite, and I'm okay with that. I'm going to go through a lot of content. And so a couple of promises. One is that I've put everything down here on a slide deck so that you can come back and pick and choose as you need. We'll be recording this and the slide deck will be available. And also any kind of questions that come up for clarification, please feel free to kind of, as Dave said, type something in the chat, or I don't mind being interrupted either if there's a clarification point, or if this opening part, you have something that is worth adding, especially if it's snarky or sarcastic on this opening quiz, because I want to keep people engaged. So we're going to do a couple of different types of media as we go through this. All right, so let's get it up. I've subtitled this, as you can see, basic and intermediate. Advanced is going to be in here as well, but it's beyond the capacity of most churches. However, there are some really great a la carte ideas in the advanced section that might suit even our more basic needs. So yeah, I'm Carl Madison. I'm chair of the National Capital Presbytery Stewardship Committee, which is, it's an honor. I work for the Presbyterian Foundation. I'm a planned giving resource guy, and my value add is not what I know, it's my gathering what you know. I go out and gather from churches what's working through conversations, but also through data about Presbyterian churches, and watch where things are thriving, and trying to package those things up and bring them back so it's usable for a lot of other ones of us. I can share it back with you. So I'm not the smart guy, but I know a lot of them. And so as we launch into this, let me see if I can get this. Yep. We're going to go in 3 sections here. 1, we're going to talk about an overview. What is planned giving? Why is it important? 2, which is numbered here 3, sorry, I eliminated the second point originally, is communicating with our congregation, inviting our members into an opportunity. And 3, which here is numbered 4, again, my apologies, is resources. Resources are a really important thing. I don't want to just say, hey, here's what you should do, and leave you with nothing to do it. So the next offer is super important. Not just reciting what you can do, but if you look on the bottom of your screen, there's that little orange exclamation mark. When we go through the second half of this conversation, wherever you see that little orange exclamation mark, it notes that this resource is waiting for you in a kit, your own planned giving kit, found on the Stewardship Navigator. Now, that's a Presbyterian Foundation resource that was built to provide planned giving programs to churches at no cost to your church. And so this is not marketing for something. It's just telling you that everything that has been accumulated is out there and available. We'll show you also how to access that. Moving along. This planned giving overview is going to be in the form of a quiz. So let's dive right in. What is planned giving? There are too many answers for me to really open the floor on this one, so I'm going to go on this. To me, as the giver, to me as a planned giver, a planned gift is the biggest gift I will ever make, and that's by far. So consider how we give regularly to the ministry of our church. I'm going to take a slide here. Here's a picture of financial assets. This is pretty representative of kind of an average household, where on this graph, there's a very small portion, about 5%, and sometimes more, up to 10%, where we can quickly convert these assets into cash, like a checking account, a savings account, investments. And these gray slices of pie represent those fungible assets. This is where we tap into our resources for purchases. Like if I go to Chipotle for lunch, if I need to pay a mortgage or pay my taxes, this is where all of that comes from. This bucket is also where our charitable giving comes from. It's where we often pay, for example, a pledge. So yeah, 90% or more of our assets are busy right now. They're being used. They're being used like we're living in it in our home. We're driving it. It's our car. Or it's waiting to be used, like retirement accounts. But one day, all of this stuff, all of these things we're using right now, we're going to be finished with it. All of these things are going somewhere, or they're going to someone. And planned giving is simply, it's transactional in nature. It's how we point this massive resource that we have at its next destination, to its next owner. And usually, I hope this is true for you as well, we're going to point these things at the people and the places that we cherish so dearly that it matters greatly what happens to them after our lifetime. So that transaction is planned giving. And it's how we transform our things into our ability to keep on doing ministry here even long after our lifetimes. So therefore, to my church, this is the most transformative gift that I will ever make. Again, that's on average. So we want to make sure it is going to a place where it will help change lives and where it will not flounder or even potentially impair the receiver. We can talk more on that. It's almost this whole webinar, but it's very important that it has an impact and that promise is lived out after our lifetimes. So how big is planned giving? Boy, another really difficult question to answer. So I'll ask more specifically, what are the total value of bequests in 2022 to all nonprofits, including churches? How many dollars were bequested? You can think that in your head. If you are unmuted, you can shout it out. Here it comes. Americans bequeathed $45.6 billion to charities, including churches, in 2022. It's a lot of money. I'm unable to really grasp that. After a certain number of zeros, I start losing my ability to understand what that means. Just it's a lot. So I'm a visual guy, and so I'm going to bring that into my old standby. I want to stack $100 bills up. So $45.6 billion is 31 miles high. It's 31 miles. If you look up at planes flying above, multiply that by a good 5 times and stack the $100 bills that high. It's a lot of money. So what's the average bequest? That's about, the lore in the industry is $75,000. But this next data point, I think, is going to be more helpful to relate to your own congregation and to your own personal situation. This is from an IRS white paper from many, many years ago. When we took the average bequest sizes to nonprofits in the United States and compared them to the average size of annual giving. So this is just a relative size. This green circle right here represents lifetime annual giving. Not what I gave this year, what I gave throughout my life if I left a bequest. So the green circle represents lifetime annual giving, and then the blue square represents the relative size of the average bequest. So on average, bequests are by far the greatest gifts that a donor will make, by 2.74 times. So, I mean, if we had to choose, hey, do we which one would we take, the annual gift or the bequest? Certainly, for funding purposes, we would always take the bequest, right? But no bequest really ever comes without that annual giving. That's kind of the predecessor to a bequest. So, question for you. How much does the average Presbyterian church receive in bequests? Anybody? I don't have my chat open, so I can't check this out. Darn it. If you had time to pick your answer, I'm going to shout it out. The average of all the churches in our denomination that receive bequests is $60,000. So if your church receives bequests, the average would be 60,000. For larger churches, it's a quite a larger figure. For smaller churches, it's smaller. It's just average. The median, though, is $0. So majority of churches don't even receive a bequest in the denomination. How many people make bequests? Hard to answer that, but I want to ask and answer this way. What percentage of the population make a charitable bequest? I'll give you a second to think about that in your head. How many people, what percentage that is, make bequests? So that $46 billion bequested was left by 5% of decedents. So 5% of estates plan a bequest. So next question is the potential. How many do you think would leave a bequest if they were asked or somehow engaged? It's significantly higher. It's 28%. And actually the percentage for Christians who are the engine behind a vast majority of charitable giving in the United States would actually be higher, but we don't have the data point for that. So we're going to stick with 28%. However you read it, it's a really big, big increase. 5 times the number who leave a bequest are actually open to making a bequest. All right, we're almost finished with this quiz. A couple more that are pretty relevant. Who do you think our planned giving givers are? Our planned givers are. So we're going to answer that with numbers first. There's this really fabulous big survey of planned givers, and they asked them a lot of wonderful questions. One is, dear planned giver, what was the age? What was your age when you wrote your planned gift? And the average of that was their first will, not when they wrote their planned gift. The average planned giver wrote their first will when they were 44 years old. And so people in their 20s generally aren't writing wills. So to make 44 years old the average, the 30s are really where all of these first-time will writers are bunched, 30s and 40s. So question for you, are we talking to them too? Oftentimes when I'm working with a church on a planned giving program, they say, well, let's get a message out to all of our oldest members. Okay, you can do that. But there's a lot of reasons that that's not the sole approach to take. I'm going to not cite all of these things. I want to leave this so that you can check out the slide deck if these points are interesting to you later. So we know that they wrote their will in their 40s. When did they write their first gift? On average, a planned giver wrote their first gift when they were 53 years old. And 40s, 50s, and 60s are the peak years when people wrote their planned gifts. And very often the approach is not to talk to them, they're to talk to people that are significantly older than that. All right. Going to wrap this one up with this fabulous question. Does planned giving hurt annual giving? This is something that comes up often. The answer is quite the opposite. This chart is by Russell James, just a guru in this area. Google's presentations on planned giving, they are remarkably informative and actually quite entertaining. This is a longitudinal study of nearly 9,500 observations over a very long time. The bars each represent 2-year increments of time, and their height represents charitable giving for the families. So that middle bar here represents the year that the family wrote their gift into an estate plan. And that period after, all those bright red bars are giving after each individual wrote a gift into their estate plan. Giving to that nonprofit or to that church spiked, and I mean a lot. So there's evidence that plan giving not only doesn't cannibalize annual giving, but it turbocharges it. So this is a real quick exercise before we transition, because I want to talk to you a little bit about who makes planned gifts and who are we talking to. I want to show you what fundraising software runs a planned giving officer, someone who is employed in the planned giving field. They have software that can vet a potential donor. They have someone, let's check the boxes, someone who meets in their walls. Think about your university or healthcare system or retirement community, someone who is in their wall, within their walls every week. That person is a strong potential plan giver. So let's call them open to making a planned gift. What if they actually give on a regular basis? They're upgraded. They're inclined to make a planned gift. And what if they volunteer at this place on a regular basis as well? And you can check that box. They're favorably inclined to make a planned gift. At my college, this person is going to be invited to the football games or the basketball games by the development staff. This is like a great candidate for a planned gift. So they participated in leadership. That's very inclined, and they share life's most important moments right here with our organization. Now, at a nonprofit, there are few and far between people who will have all of these boxes checked. And this is the perfect plan giver who probably already made their planned gift. Now, we on this call have a room full of those every week coming to hear what you have to say about their lives, their faith, their futures, and their finances. So we have what I would call a very strong competitive advantage, such that they would trade every tool that they have at one of these larger nonprofits for this kind of access to the donor's ear. So we want to pivot on that note to a communication plan. Well, let's talk about reaching these people. Because it feels like we should be better at this than the nonprofits who have mastered this. So why are we not getting it? I'm going to make a big statement here. Most plan giving programs and churches lose momentum and falter. It has everything to do with being the right size for the church's program. The wrong fit plan giving program is a problem, but it runs rampant through our churches. And it's not to blame us for it. It's just something to be aware of so we can behave differently. I'm going to be dramatic and tell you that there are billions and billions of great ideas out there for church plan giving. And so they're so good that oftentimes we overload our plan. And then as we start implementing our plan, it turns out to be absolutely overwhelming. And so we might end up with a very slow startup program that starts to stutter. The best plan might actually be too large, might be too complex. And our committee might eventually have a morale issue if we actually have a committee. The consequence of that is that the momentum stalls. And after 6 to 18 months, most programs will peter out if they are not the right size. And then you have about a 6 to 10 year period of time where no one even touches plan giving. So I've bummed you out. I get it. But it would be a bummer if it's unavoidable, but it's avoidable if we can see that roadblock ahead. So I want to talk to you about right sized real quick.
Okay. Hey, Carl, can I interrupt just
Yeah,
before you
bring
leave the numbers? We just have a question here, a couple part question, just going back to the 60K average
Sure.
bequest. So here are the couple questions. Total amount the church receives from that 60K average. And if so, over how many years? And is it the lifetime of the church? Is it 1 year, one-time donation, multiple years, lifetime?
So the 60,000 is a figure that is taken from the statistics report collected by the General Assembly. And so they collect about 7 different financial revenue data points, like giving, bequests, investment income, and that kind of thing. And so the bequest revenue for the entire denomination was $119 million. And about 28% of the Presbyterian churches received a bequest in that year. And we just averaged that number out for all the churches that received it. So that is the average of the churches who receive a bequest, is $60,000. They receive it once, it would come outright. Well, oftentimes it would come outright to the church and be used according to policies, or many times just applied to a budget.
Carl, this is Chuck. I asked the question.
Hey, Chuck.
Is that per year?
Nope.
60,000 per year, 60,000? No, that's what.
A bequest is a one-time distribution. Yeah.
One-time distribution, 60,000 for church average per year. That they receive one time, or
no, the average size of a bequest, but many churches are getting a bequest.
Average size of one person's request is 60,000 for a year. Doesn't say that's the average amount. See, you see what I'm saying? There are a lot of factors, a lot of variables here. I just want to get them down. I hope I'm not overthinking this. 60,000 is the average one-time bequest if a church receives one.
It's the average bequest revenue. The average bequest might be smaller than that, but it's the average of all of the bequest revenue that church would receive in a year.
Okay, got it.
If there are more than one
Okay,
decedent super
got it.
to bequest. Yeah. And if there's interest later, I have actually specific data on those things. I will say that we do follow the churches who are receiving bequests on a recurring basis, because oftentimes that's where we find our best ideas. And the amount a church gets over a 5-year period might look more like $100 next year, $120,000 the next year, $10,000 the next year, 0. It's really like what they get every year is just depends on who's left what. Yep. Okay. Fabulous. All right. Thanks, Dave. So as we pivot to this communication plan, let's talk a little bit more about right sizing. It's subjective. This is certainly your own evaluation, but we're going to share from our experience as we break it down into 3 different size programs of basic and intermediate. And I still am going to keep advanced in there, as I promised, but we'll have ideas for each one of these. And throughout this, we're going to mark these basic ideas with that 1 green plus on there. We're going to mark intermediate ideas with those 2 pluses. This would be a program for a church who has a team in place. For example, intermediate, you might have like either people dedicated to plan giving or more than one person doing it. And that's not a majority of our churches, but again, we can go a la carte with this, and I highly recommend that we would. And advanced is kind of gold standard stuff. It's really great, but it's going to take more time. It's sometimes the most exciting and even worth, if you're at the basic level, to do maybe one of these more advanced things on occasion, because they're actually really life-giving to a church, no matter what size. So how do you know if you have basic, intermediate, or advanced program? Let's base it on capacity. This is very back of the napkin stuff, but we're going to look at membership size. You know, the median church, let's say 2020 was about 68 members. And since that's our medium, most of our churches based on that don't have the time to do this time-intensive plan giving strategy. The simpler organic ways to connect are much easier to even to leap over what a larger church might have to do, because they have to do something that's more structured and based on a lot more paperwork and planning. So if you look at your team, a single person might be working on these things with very, very limited time, or you might have a full committee. A full committee would lead you to be more of an intermediate program. And then you want to assess the time that you have available. Is a single person working on this versus a bunch of people? And what is their net amount of time? I'll show you at the end of this also a program that we made where you put all of this stuff in there and then make a plan out of it. It's a video game, a plan giving video game. And I'll just show you kind of the cover of it. But it's an exercise to go through what resources do you have, how much energy do you have, and then what are the things that you can do based on your energy budget. The things that have the highest legacy payoff based on the inputs that you have. So as we right size, remember those pluses. We're going to really focus on this basic program as we go through this. This orange line represents kind of what most of the churches we want to lift up are needing. All right. So here's that Stewardship Navigator. This is a kit. We'll call it a kit for the rest of the session. Is within this, you will find a stewardship program, but on the left menu, there is a plan giving module. I'll show you where that is in just one moment. The Presbyterian Foundation built this to have a basic plan giving program and the tools at no charge to your church. We want to take this moment to show you how to access this so that you know where to get these ideas and resources. And you'll see these great ones marked by that orange exclamation mark. So you go to stewardshipnavigator.com. You click on sign up the top right, or log in there if you've been here before. If you're returning your credential, enter your login credentials, and you've arrived at this main site that I'm going to click to in a second. So on the left menu, you'll see plan giving, and there we go. It has a lot of different ways to communicate with it. You can actually download the PDF of this whole planning booklet, or you can go through online and just look through each of these ways to communicate through your program. I don't want to show you any more depth on that right now. I just want to show you how to access it, because you'll see the depth as we walk through and highlight those opportunities. So we're going to talk about part 2, communicating the plan giving opportunity to your congregation. So note the words on the right. Sharing the opportunity to create a legacy. Sharing the gratitude for these gifts, sharing the stories of your givers, and sharing the impact that their gifts have had. Notice we haven't addressed the topics of talking about money, given at death, or the favorite part of plan giving, tax benefits. These are not lead points in a great church plan giving program. These are points that I think we get lulled into celebrating, but they are not compelling. They are not solving problems for congregation members. They are tactics. They'll solve a problem only after the real problem has been solved, which is legacy. What am I going to be after my lifetime, and how can I continue this work here? So here's the basics. I'm going to go through this on one sheet of paper, and it'll take us just a couple of minutes. These basics can apply to everyone, even to your church if you're intermediate or advanced. These, by design, must be very low effort. Let's recall that many members are not opposed to leaving a plan gift. They just haven't thought about it. So they just need to be reminded. What we are estimating here is perhaps an hour to 2 hours per month. You can keep this within an hour per month, dedicating this to a basic plan giving program. It'll help to spread these throughout the year to even your workload. The first thing I'd recommend are plan giving web pages. Now you see that yellow exclamation mark means we actually have one for you. We have a very basic one that any church can use. It has all this default information, and you can customize it on your own, or I can help you do that. You get to put your name, your logo on there, your contact information. And if you don't like the content that's default in there, like, hey, I don't like your video, well, you can put your own in there. And in this presbytery, you can also contact me and say, hey, Carl, can you make us a legacy video for our church? And I will do that. But I can't really do it outside of this presbytery. So if anyone's watching this and it's being recorded outside of National Capital, I'd love to help. And you can try me, but there you are. So a website is your storefront. It's assumed that everything important is on your website, reflected and actionable there. And a good plan giving page, it does sound like a lot of work, and it would be, but this is here for you. We place this in summer because that's a quiet time and it's a little bit of work to do. We designed this plan giving webpage so you could have it up and running in as little as 5 minutes, right? Some of your churches are going to want something more sophisticated. We have kind of a premium product that's in a beta phase right now. So you can actually have a plan giving page that is exactly matched to your church's web design. And that is also something we have, but I'm not going to show you on this webinar because we want to stick with some basics right now. Blurbs. If you can't do anything else, do blurbs. They are the easiest, lowest investment of time, and highest success rate if they are recurring over a long period of time. Try it every month or every other month in a bulletin, newsletter, or social media, and make sure that, well, ideally that you collect your series of blurbs over the year, or better, even over 2 years, and schedule them on a calendar so that you know that they happen. The only problem with blurbs is we don't follow through on doing them after the first few months, for example. If you can follow through and have people see plan giving as something inspirational about plan giving over 2 year period of time, you are probably in the top 5% performing plan giving programs in the church. That is how high value and low effort this is. Again, there's an exclamation mark right there. There's a document called Touch Points that's in the Stewardship Navigator. It's a 4-page document that has a bunch of fantastic examples. And here's one if you want to come back and just lift this one. Let's move to later in the year. During pledge season, include plan giving on your pledge card. Make a space. 2 boxes is ideal. You could be more economical with words than I have been here, but this works. One space will invite respondents to note if they've made a plan gift, the other if they'd like to learn more about a plan gift. A check in either box is remarkably helpful. Even seeing this, if they don't fill it out, is remarkably helpful. It's just another reminder of plan giving. So I'm amazed also at how many churches say that they have had 1 to several responses on these things. And remember, that is incredible based on the size of plan gifts. This is kind of wrapping up the basics. Have a legacy Sunday in the spring. It's also called Will's Sunday. I'm a strong proponent of Legacy Sunday because that says so much more. Will is the transactional document. Preach on it if you can. Your words move people the most. There is a brochure. See that yellow exclamation mark? This is semi-customizable. You can put your church name on there. It's a bifold brochure, and you can print that in-house. There are print materials available from the Presbyterian Foundation on like larger brochures, how to prepare for making a gift, what are the different kinds of gifts you can make, etc. And do a minute for mission. Here's just a quick example. Actually, this is one I did. I was in banking before this field, and they asked me to talk about plan giving. And basically we said, we met my wife and I met here at our church. We were married here at our church. Our kids were baptized here, in a place where everything changes so fast. This church has been our one constant, our foundation in Washington, D.C. And thank you to you, our church family, for being there for us and for carrying us through some of our hardest times and our greatest moments. And we want to be there for you too. So we wanted you to know that you're part of our estate plans. Pretty simple. And it meant a lot to us to say it, to verbalize it. And it transformed our gift from being, oh, we're going to leave you a transaction when we die, to like, oh, this place does mean something to us. When you have to articulate it, it converts it into something much more meaningful than that simple transaction. So this is everything in the basic on one page. And since they're all important for every entry level, we're going to keep these on the page as we move to intermediate. We're just going to push it all up to the top while we start launching into this. For intermediate programs, you want to share, let's say 4 times a year, an article, or even better, a minute for mission. Video is a fantastic option. It's getting much easier to do. Vary your message based on these seasons. In the spring, do the ask. Let's call it an invitation. Invite members to plan a gift, specifically to continue their ministry through our church. So that's the ask. Follow it up in the summer. And then express gratitude if they have made a gift, even if they're thinking about making the gift. And in the fall, talk about the impact. What have past gifts done? Show that your congregation is a wise and a reliable place for the plan giver to continue their legacy after their lifetime. And then hit that legacy topic before you come back to spring. So in the winter, invite members to discern their own legacy and how to share that with the people and the places they love. This is an invaluable experience that shouldn't be reserved for just the advanced churches. People sharing their legacy, their faith legacy, is life-changing. That's actually how I changed careers, is my parents, before they died, shared theirs. Wasn't an easy decision, but their words like changed the course of my life. So let's talk a little about the spring. Send a letter, that ask letter, to invite them to make a planned gift. There is this great sample. You can see it's got that great exclamation mark. You don't have to use the same letter every year. That would actually be counterproductive. You can shake it up, but be certain to have a thank you letter ready for those who do respond, and a welcome letter if you have a legacy society. Legacy society, we can talk more offline, or if there's a Q&A. Yeah. Plan giving conversations. Who has these plan giving conversations? It seems obvious that the pastor and a plan giving like representative or team would be the answer, but most of us are uncomfortable talk about giving money, especially as an outcome of a member's death. So what we want to do is shift the conversation away from the end and to the beginning of what's next. Shift to legacy and how to continue working here after your lifetime. This is a great resource that is just really good pointers for normal people to be comfortable with unusually difficult topics. Just learning how to phrase things well makes all of the difference in the world. Yeah. Skip. And you can do events and seminars. Just wanted to keep that in there. We'll revisit this in a little bit more depth as we transition to more advanced topics. So these are the basics and intermediate program resources. So remember, there are unlimited options and ideas. You can't go wrong with any of these, but you need to be selective, because this is the net of all this is just too much. So you want to start picking what is high value for you. And I hate to say it, but high value and low effort. So I'm just going to sprint through these advanced topics because I want you to know about them, but I'd rather leave some time open for some Q&A, or maybe talking through anything specific for the group. My favorite events are events on discerning a legacy. A colleague of mine and I do these. And we, instead of meeting to talk about plan gifts, like, hey, what's a charitable remainder trust? What are the tax benefits? I mean, if you've ever done one of those in your church, you might have had 2 to 3 people show up. It's not compelling. But having people come in and share like their faith stories and their legacies and what they'd hope to leave behind as their message is one of those things that packs a room. And we often do that instead of in an adult ed in something like a dessert. Which in many churches has turned into multiple desserts. Like, hey, can we meet again to talk more about this? Session and staff briefings. When starting or restarting your plan giving program, consider briefing your session on the plan, what's about to happen, and grab maybe 15 minutes to just share what it is and what it can mean for the church. Lay out the plan you have to promote it, and share, this is the hard one, share 3 remarkably simple ways that each session member can support the program. They can be leading with their own gift, but it can just be knowing common words that members might use that cry out, like, I'm ready to talk about plan giving. People sometimes are asking for solutions. I wish we could do this at this church. Give them the opportunity to help do that. Simple words to respond to someone who has a yearning, and the means. And then know where to refer members who want to know more. Is it to one of us on this call? Is it to your pastor, or to the Stewardship Committee? Is it to Olanda Carr, who's the Presbyterian Foundation's regional representative? Know where to send someone, so that when someone says, I do want to know more about this, it's not a 2-month turnaround time. Because at my university or my college, it's about a 1-hour turnaround time. Someone will call you right back. So let's try to be on the ball for that. I know it can be hard to do. Yeah. Well, there's donor stories. That's pretty advanced. It's doesn't need to be, but it's advanced only because of the time that it takes. Thanking people for past gifts. If you have known plan givers in your congregation that you haven't spoke with or checked in a long time, it's a brilliant idea to check in and just write them a note that says, hey, we're just feeling grateful for you. Doesn't have to be a whole lot more. Thanks for, considering your gift. We just wanted to know that you're not forgotten. And then showing impact. This is one that I will share because some churches might need this. Before you spend a lot of money, and a bequest is, you want to know that you're going to get some value out of it. When I buy a car, I want to make sure I get the right car. I don't really care about my iced tea. If it's not good, I'll just get another one. But for big purchases, and a plan giving gift is, you want to know that this is the right place to leave it, because someone's going to take care of this after your lifetime. You want to know that they are spending it well, or managing it well. So if your church has an endowment, especially, it is really helpful to know that the endowment is doing amazing things. For most churches, endowments are not spoken about. There's some mystery and intrigue around them. They're often misunderstood. Their story is untold. So their impact is, I would say that the average church with an endowment is pretty unknown. So our members start to veer off into their own assumptions about what this is. And there's 2 things I want to say we're at risk for. Why aren't we using that endowment? It just sits there. And almost always it's not true that it's just sitting there, but that's the perception. So point 2, that church doesn't need our giving because there is a pile of money there. They have those doggone endowment funds. So we have to shut down those misdirects, and we have to tell the story. There are some churches that I help with this every year. They might do like an endowment annual report. We have samples of that. Just ways to say, hey, here's what we did. Here's how much money we spent. Here's what we did with it. And I have a growing number of churches where I actually I take something like this and make it into a video for them. 2-minute video. That's here's what we did last year. Thank you so much to all those people who did it. We're so grateful that they did it. Looks like a lot, but we need a lot more. Why don't we join with them? So that we want to make sure that no one at our current church is taking any credit or getting a pat on the back for distributions from the endowment. A lot of times we do that. We distribute from the endowment, like, hey, great job on us. Someone else did that before you. Your turn is to do it now and make that invitation. And let's wrap it up with these resources. Here's that website, Stewardship Navigator that I mentioned. It's awesome. Love it. And we're not going to go into depth on that because we've hit it enough. Here's a larger screenshot of the plan giving pages. The one on Stewardship Navigator does not directly clone your church's website, you can change the colors to match it, logo, certain pictures you can change, things like that. It's pretty fabulous. And again, at no charge to your church. Here are representations of Presbyterian Foundation brochures that are also free. I just got some for our church, and it's you just have to pay postage. And here's that brochure. And let's wrap it up. Here's Plan Giving Navigator. And here's that video game I told you about. If anyone would like to take the video game to kind of assess what your church energy is around plan giving and then what resources are possible, it's a pretty fun game, but it's an application on a computer. It's not online. And here's just some screenshots for more advanced churches. The Plan Giving Navigator, I'd be delighted to sign anyone up who's interested. These are all of the different, more customized materials. It has a program planner. So if you need to do a lot of things, this actually has all the steps to establishing everything from policies to vision statements. What do you need to do? What do you not need to do? And it prints out your checklist. I mentioned Orlando Carr. He is a fantastic representative from the Presbyterian Foundation and available to help out churches and not just plan giving, but a really wide variety of anything with generosity and financial issues. And I sprinted through the last. I'm sorry. It always sounds rushed and maybe some oversights, but I did want to open up to say, please give me any feedback where I was wrong or like Chuck did, where I can make some clarifications or where you want more information.
You can enter your questions in the chat box, or just if you want, you can also we can unmute your mic and speak up for Carl. I'll ask one right to kick it off, Carl. How important is it if you have a plan giving committee, which is we're looking at forming, is that all the members of that committee already have a planned gift made? You can say that when they're presenting and talking to members.
Great question. I actually, on the Plan Giving Navigator, have one of those items on the calendar. The getting started is on your committee and team. How to form a great committee. I would have certain criteria on there. I would have a diversity of every single category you can possibly imagine. We've talked about plan givers are younger than we often assume. It's important to get diversity of ages. Oftentimes you see plan giving committees. I mean, I'm sorry if this is a horrible statement, but it's often a lot of men and often from accounting and legal professions. And those are all helpful. Men are helpful, legal and financial are helpful, but they're not usually the ones who are doing the planned gifts. Most planned gifts actually come from women. A significant majority come from women. And if you have a male accountant, all due respect, I love male accountants. Putting your messaging forward, we're speaking only to a really small subset of people. And yeah, should they have made their planned gifts? It would be, I think a lot of my colleagues would say they should probably have made a planned gift. I think a lot have put a qualification in there is we want everyone to consider their legacy here. And during their time on the committee to have discerned what their legacy is. And it might not be financial for everyone. We need to value someone's legacy. Actually, there's someone on here, but I remember their church didn't want anyone who gave the most sacrificial gift to not be honored. And if they didn't have any funding, what is it? Could they leave a blessing? What is it they want to leave to future generations that is a gift? And financial doesn't necessarily have to be it. So I would say, thinking at least during their tenure, what can their legacy be here? It should be it should have a financial component, but that should be the transaction that is informed by what they want their legacy to be.
course, Jerry adds, perhaps it's because women outlive men.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of interesting data points on why that is. They're all right, and they're all embarrassing for men too. Yeah. So
This is Ashley at Arlington Presbyterian
hey.
Church. One thing that we just did, our session just kind of approved to get ready to do this is a gift receiving document. And basically it's a permission giving document that outlines lots of things that people can give and things for us to think about. And it says like you need to establish a group, right? A group that will actually approve to receive the gift. And everything that we, any cash or anything, unrestricted. No, we are taking no more restricted money, period. So that's been really helpful for us to start thinking about this, but also that we don't have to take your yacht. Because actually it would be more cumbersome for us. So so that's been actually a good kind of thought process for us. So I just wanted to share that.
Thanks for that. Actually, that's a really important point, that there are a lot of gifts that we can't receive. I do want to offer that there are some opportunities, and actually you probably know this as well or better than I do, like that if because Olanda and Brad from the trust company, there are certain gifts they can take on your behalf. So if you have someone saying, I want to do a charitable remainder trust, gosh, no, your church should not be doing that. But the Presbyterian Foundation or their own attorney might do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And if someone has like a piece of real estate, they're like, I just want to give it to the church. Somehow have a conversation about, well, maybe your estate could sell that and distribute the cash. Because oftentimes those are extremely complicated gifts, and we don't want to get in that business.
Yeah.
There's a workaround.
Yeah. So the document basically, so when we go talk to people, we can also say we have this document and this is the things we'll receive. And these are the things we're going to think about if they're given to us. So basically like, let's streamline this as much as possible for us to receive with ease. And for their estate to give with ease too.
Yeah.
So.
I love it.
We can relate because we're at Darnestown. We're out in the country. There's a lot of farms outside our area. And we, about 3 or 4 years after a member passed, we received the gift of their gas tank, a big oil and gas tank under the ground that was located on their farm. And it was actually worth something. I mean, it turned into be a couple $1,000s. And we had somebody, fortunately, somebody in our congregation who knew about this kind of work and was on, had a farm and was able to actually liquidate it for us. But yes,
I just had a call about gold coins. It's actually a lot more work to explore it than I thought. Yeah. Anyway, if I can also follow up on one point Ashley made, is restricted funds are complicated, and ideally we all want unrestricted funds. One caveat I'll put in there is if you have someone with significant resources, giving them all to the church, which sometimes it's multiple times the size of a church's budget. There might be some opportunities for them to think about, like, how can I set this up so that the church is not overwhelmed by this? That's often when I get a call, is when there's too much money coming in. So yeah, one opportunity, we're going to have another webinar on this, is inviting people to think about endowing their pledge, because that has flexibility on how you use the money in the future, but it also enables you to accept significant estates that are benefit to multiple generations, where it doesn't overwhelm your current budget, which I don't know if you all have this problem, but most churches get really, like, once too much money comes in, that's when kind of the different perspectives on how we're going to use it happen. So endowing a pledge is actually something we want to have it in our next webinar.
Carl, this is Patrick McElwain. Just to make sure I understand the terminology, endowing your pledge means continuing at the same giving level that you were before death, and just locking in that number for a long period of time.
Correct.
Thank you.
This is Charlie Gates from Berg. I noticed that your calendar sort of parallels the annual stewardship campaign. How do you keep the two separate?
Good question. It's important to keep it separate, in my humble opinion. I think a lot of people would disagree with me on that. I think what's helpful is to have any kind of asks to be in that springtime. For those of us who have our campaign, let's call it, in the fall, so that there's no potential for confusion. You're asking me two different ways for money. It's not the same. It's not the same, but there is ample room for confusion. So we do want to have year-round communications for plan giving at a low hum. So what would be great is to have that, during the fall, just thank you. Recognize All Saints Sunday, something to just thanking people who were before us and left us what they did to do ministry with, that kind of thing. And talking about impact. Like, those are all the best things for people to hear, that we're grateful that we make good use of the resources. Those are the stories we tell, so that when the spring comes back around and we ask if they'd be interested in making a planned gift, that it makes sense. They're not wondering, so it's a transaction, you want money when I die. That's not what they hear. They've just heard they can do great things after their lifetime here. So I'm glad that you noticed that, because that's very, very, very intentional. Yeah.
This is Pat Wolf from Rockville. Are you able to comment on life insurance policies naming churches as beneficiaries?
I am not smart enough to say a lot on that. I would say, as beneficiaries, if it's good, like Ashley said, to have policies on this to make it clear, because life insurance can be gifted in multiple ways. As a beneficiary, it's fabulous. I mean, it's actually, I think, the number 4 type of plan gift. As long as the original purposes are satisfied, as long as no one's being we're not harming anyone else who should be receiving it. But other ways to receive life insurance are not ideal, in my perspective. I don't think a policy at a church should have except a life insurance policy where they still have to pay premiums, for example. That gets pretty messy. So as a beneficiary or a contingent beneficiary, oftentimes that's the ideal way to do it. Do you have something specific on that at this time, or are you?
No, it just seemed like an easy ask, because you don't have, if you're making an ask for a gift at death, you don't have to pay an attorney to list the church as a beneficiary. It just seemed like low-hanging fruit.
Low-hanging fruit is life insurance, if it's given in that manner. Also, beneficiary designations, because so many of your financial resources are not governed directly by a will. Often, your bank accounts, your retirement accounts can be, a 5-minute change of beneficiary. And retirement accounts are where significant assets are, and they're also where there's the most potential tax liability for heirs. So if I were to leave something to my children and something to my church, very often a retirement asset is the ideal thing to leave to the church, because they don't have tax on it. My children will have a lot of tax on it. So there's some really low-hanging fruit out there.
All right, Carl, we've gone over our hour. I don't know if we have any
Sorry.
other last question. That's all right. Last questions, but I know people are busy, but we can take maybe one more. If not, if you can give us just a wrap up to head out with.
Yeah, well, I think the most important thing I would say, one is plan giving needs to be about someone's faith legacy, and having, the assets are just transactional. And when you're messaging this, like, focus on legacy, because that's what people really need. There's a real absence of that. The other thing is right size your program. Doing less over a long period of time is so much more impactful than having the perfect program. I rarely see perfect programs, perfectly orchestrated programs that thrive. The small ones, the turtles, kind of always beat the hare. That's what I got. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Carl. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. As we mentioned in the beginning, this session has been recorded, and Carl's going to make sure the slides are also available for posting, and then we'll send out a notification when they're ready and available for everybody to access. But Carl, thank you for this great presentation. Very interesting and a lot of good feedback.
So Dave, there was one thing that came in, and I will share this.
Okay.
If anyone needs to contact me for anything specific, feel free to. I will give you my personal email because it's easier to follow. It's Carl, Karl, Mattison, Mattison, at hotmail.com. Yes, Hotmail.
Somebody still uses Hotmail. Wow. I thought that went like with AOL, went out with the AOL.com.
I get people second looking me all the time. What? Did you say hot? Yeah. Well, thanks, Dave. I appreciate you hosting this.
I still have a Hotmail and I'm never giving it up.
They're beautiful. They
Yep.
work.
All right. Thank you, Carl. Thank you, Luan, for
Thank you.
facilitating this. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. Have a
Awesome.
good rest of the day.
Take care. Bye.